What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more, well, some less arms again. This will be the last time I'm recording without arms because honestly, I kind of miss my arms. Anyway, without further ado, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. And hopefully get back to a more consistent release schedule instead of like once in a while, because I hate that too. Anyway, off to the story for today. DM accused me of metagaming because I use damage types the enemies are weak to. Been playing with this group for a short while and has been alright. Some internal conflicts, some people not getting along and such, but it has been okay. Last night the group was about to fight a mad scientist and his robot slash warforged slash clockwork guards. Keep in mind that these are homebrew made by DM, meaning I know nothing about the stats and I could not have looked them up even if I wanted to. I assume robots will be weak to electricity, meaning lightning damage, right? So I cast Chromatic Orb with lightning damage, lightning bolt, etc., and the guards die easily. DM stops the game right there and says, "If you're just going to metagame like that, you can leave." I was, of course, unsure what he meant, so I asked him to elaborate. He says that, "If you're just going to use damage types to your advantage like that, it takes the fun out of combat. He did this exact thing with radiant damage last game in a crypt when fighting the undead too. I'm sick of it, and everyone else is too." I'd say that it's totally logical to use certain damage types against certain enemies, like how would I use fire against ice enemies and so on. I also asked the others if it was true that everyone else was sick of it too. And people kind of mumbled an answer and I could not really hear them. DM said he would just give me one last chance and next time you metagame like that, I will kick you instantly. I agreed, but now kind of unsure if I want to continue playing in that group. Edit. People asking, so I'll fill in. This is sort of a D&D but with its own post-apocalyptic world. Lore in short is that some phenomena cause the world of D&D to clash into ours. Things like electricity powered things are uncommon, but not rare, so my character and like everyone else would know that electricity fries electric powered things. I feel like if you tell the DM the water is wet, they'll call out for saying metagaming because they tell the most obvious thing imaginable. Why wouldn't you use lightning on a construct that is powered by electricity to try to fry its circuits if it blends D&D with real world together? Why wouldn't you use radiant damage on a ghost, kind of the opposite, or like the undead or whatever, the opposite of it? Why wouldn't you use fire with ice or water with, I don't know, I guess thunder with rock? If you have ever played an RPG or hell, Pokemon for crying out loud, you would know that there's some weaknesses that some elements have and you kind of been trained through video games and gamification of these systems that weaknesses to elements are a thing. I even know anybody who hasn't played a Final Fantasy game or a JRPG or an RPG in general where fire doesn't melt ice or lightning doesn't cause chain reaction with water or metal things or something like that, or that thunder breaks rock. I don't know anybody else who doesn't know that. If you know your Pokemon types or played a Pokemon game or touched any RPG or JRPG or really, well, I mean any coherent video game at all that uses even a simplest of element systems or element like interactions, you would know that these things kind of make sense. You're working with homebrewed monsters that DM designed themselves, so you have no idea how they're gonna function. What you can do is just do your very best guess of, electric based constructs, maybe can fry their power circuits or something. Just you literally just thinking. If the DM is mad at you for using your brain and actually thinking of a solution instead of just being like, okay, I take hammer, I smash, I end my turn. What? I just don't understand why this DM specifically wants you to ignore the smart thinking and just go with the most brain dead thinking possible. It just doesn't make sense to me. It would be one thing if, let's say, for example, you were indeed looking at these monsters, if they, you know, there was a record for them, and you specifically abusing their like weaknesses or something, or doing some sort of a cheese exploit. But you're not even doing that. You're just using Chromatic Orb with lightning damage or lightning bolt, the most simplest of spells ever. And only because you're using your brain, they're calling it out as a metagaming. No, DM, that's not metagaming. This is your player actually being involved in the world and actually caring enough to decide, maybe I should try a specific strategy against this specific type of enemy because this is a different world and I want to actually think for myself a little bit. The best thing to really do for you, I believe, is to maybe have a talk with the DM and just tell him, hey, please stop punishing me for actually trying to think outside the box. Because God forbid, I don't want to just take my Warhammer and swing for a turn then end my turn there. God forbid, I actually want to try to use some sort of a spell spell or try to think of some sort of clever solution to try to get through the enemy. God forbid I want to use my brain to play D&D. Or if this is becoming too much, honestly, I'd say it might be best just to quit ahead before the DM gets the satisfaction of booting you. Because God forbid you decide to think of a simple solution. Next thing you know, DM is going to say that you're metagaming for saying water is wet. Oh no, the humanity. This DM is a little bit over the top. Let's go ahead and move on to another story where probably another DM is over the top. I always enslaved you. Why won't you date me? In college, I made the mistake of joining the school's D&D club, trying to make some friends. I've had a few other bad stories from this club. This was definitely the worst one, and the one that made me quit. The club had like 100-ish members, and every week it got lumped in with 3 to 4 random strangers in the DM for adventure. I've been playing for a few weeks, so my character was level 3 at this point, and I was assigned to a group with another girl and 2 guys. One was normal one was that guy. That guy throughout the session kept staring at me, which just gave me some weird vibes, which I wrote off because we're all awkward nerds here. At the end of the adventure, my character died in combat, and everyone was pretty sympathetic about it, except that guy who offered me a deal. He'll bring my character back to town and pay to have them revived if I promise to do anything he wanted until I paid off the debt, with emphasis on the anything part. I was feeling pretty uncomfy at that and tried to politely decline, which he responded with, "Okay, if that's the case, I'll get a scroll to raise dead and make you my undead slave for all eternity. So don't worry, your character will live on." That's the most disgusting L Riz ever. I've never heard worse Riz possible. I mean, yeah, it's cool of you to like offer to resurrect somebody, but to do like anything you want kind of thing. What are you, a warlock like patron? Are you trying to cause some sort of a pact? No, it's not a warlock patron. It's a pervert patron. Yeah, pervert patron, and they try to do some sort of a pervert pact so you can basically be their sex slave or something. Probably. Again, wildly uncomfortable at the idea, but at this point, I just want to go back to my dorm and forget about this stupid club. And no one else at the table seems to notice or care. We all pack up and leave, and that guy starts to head in the same direction as me and reveals he lives in his dorm across from mine. Great. During the walk, he stares at me directly in the eyes and whips out, "Has anyone ever told you how beautiful you are?" I just said no and sped walked the rest of the way, hoping he would get the hint. Instead, he sped up and started to ask about how I wanted to handle my character now that I was working for him. I said I didn't care, made it to the door, and decided to maybe not to go back to the D&D club. Good! That's creeper factor. Also, I hope he tells more stories about it, because I feel like this is the kind of guy that honestly is going to be like a pick-me guy, or like, oh, I don't know if there's a specific term for it, but he's going to be the kind of guy that's going to be a reoccurring villain. He is literally setting up like a reoccurring villain archetype where he's going to be constantly like there because he knows where you are now. He knows where you are. You probably end up having awkward interactions with this guy. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of interactions you have. I hope they're not terrible, but also, I don't know, man. Like, it just looks like spicy drama to me, and I know I don't want to treat this channel as like spicy drama time, but I'm genuinely interested. There's nothing wrong with somebody wanting to like shoot their shot and everything. There's nothing wrong with somebody wanting to shoot their shot, but this isn't shooting your shot. This is going to become a creeper and then continue with the creep factor until it turns up to 11, which is really weird. First of all, you're trying to make a deal for somebody in your D&D campaign with someone's character, but you're trying to use it as a way to flirt, and the way you flirt is by trying to make somebody their, like, I guess, sex slave by either being revived or being an undead sex slave, which is necrophilic. In fact, and if they don't want to get revived, you can just be like, "Oh, I'll just make you my undead sex slave instead." What? That is bizarre. And then walking behind somebody, it's speed running behind them because you think they're into the conversation when they clearly try to get away from you. Also uncomfortable. And then the line is, "Has anyone ever told you how beautiful you are?" Oh, no, 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 no. We leave this kind of cringe back in middle school, and we never do it again, and we act like regular human beings. This guy clearly didn't get the memo. Again, I want to say I hope you didn't have any more horrible events, but if you did, I really hope you share them, because God, the cringe is potent. The cringe is so potent, but I got the taste of cringe and I need more of it. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with shooting your shot, but please, everybody, do not go into creepy territory. Be fun, but don't be creepy. That's, I think, that anyone would ever ask for. Let's move on to the next story for today. The worst person I've ever met. That title is not an exaggeration. It's not just the worst player I've ever met. He is the absolute worst human being that I've ever been in a room with. I've been playing TTRPGs for 20 years, and I've acquired many stories about players and DMs. I share a story about a game I never got to play here, and my roommate told me to post about Stinkle, obviously not his real name. I wasn't going to because the less said about him the better, but my roommate talked me into it. I will start with less egregious offenses and build the crescendo of evil. Firstly, Stinkle's hygiene. This man never bathed like ever. His whites were actually yellow. I saw this man wear the same outfit multiple sessions in a row without washing it. His hair was greasy mess, grown out to shoulder length, but like everything else about him, it was unkempt. People would ask him, if you don't want to take care of it, why don't you cut it? His response was, then everyone will know I'm bald. He had the most obvious bald spot I've ever seen, it with his greasy matted mess of hair. So he had the mess for no reason. There was this cloud of stink that just got into your nose and stayed there. Hence the nickname Stinkle. It smelled like milk left out for a week. That's the least awful thing about him. I know what I'm going to say is very hyperbolic, but it should be a federal offense that somebody has to smell this terrible. If you could describe the vividness, like the detail of how terrible they smell. Your words alone, I could sniff it in the tip of my nose, and I hate it. Ugh, I hate it so much. I'm actually going to vomit. Also, ironically, some people just actually look kind of cool bald. I don't know if you ever like seen somebody just go from like, you know, kind of bald into straight up bald. They immediately get a cool factor. Something for Stinkle to really consider. Some people just look cool bald. I don't know. Anyway, we got a disgusting player that really clearly does not know about plumbing or showers. Let's continue. Next, he seemed to only be interested in D&D as a way to experience any kind of sexual interaction. He wasn't able to get any kind of attention in that way for reasons beyond just his hygiene. We'll get to that. So D&D was his way to find that fantasy. Small aside, I don't care about ERP, even if it's a part of the game I'm playing in. I don't ERP, but hey, play how you want as long as it's not forced on other people. Having said that, I joined the game he was running, an anime-themed 5e game. I'm a gay man and love all things feminine, so being a magical anime girl sounded so much fun. After Stinkle, I don't play women characters anymore. First thing he asked about my character, not class, not backstory, not role and party. Not the first thing he asked in nasally voice, how big are your boobs? I didn't know how to respond except to say, I don't think that's going to matter. He then says, no, I wrote a spot on it for the character sheet. I looked at the sheet he gave me, and this guy actually created a stat labeled bulge/bust on the sheet. I moved on and just wanted to play, which I did for only 2 sessions. I was already a 10-year veteran of TTRPG, so I already knew no D&D is better than bad D&D. I can't believe the audacity of somebody to do that. What makes it think it's... I mean, listen, there's some games, sure, I could see. If, let's say, for example, you're playing in a kinky game with a bunch of other kinky people, and everybody knows ahead of time this is that kind of a kinky game where you're going to be exploring weird fantasies. Instead of rolling the dice, you might be rolling a ball or two, maybe in your mouth, but like... people are like consenting to that sort of thing ahead of time. Nobody has agreed to this. There's just something that Stinkle, right? That's his name? Stinkle? I think that's his name. This is just something that Stinkle decided himself that everybody is gonna do that, and we need to have a bulge and bust number. Why? What is the point? It's one thing if everybody is cool with it and everybody knows it's a sexy game, but in this situation, that doesn't matter. You're just playing in, well, okay, no mind. You're playing in Stinkle's anime D&D harem fantasy game, clearly. So of course it matters. God, guys, I'm such an idiot. Wow, Morrow is so dumb. In the first session I played, the first thing I saw him do was make another player, also playing a female character, soil their underwear and force a quest to get a fresh pair. The campaign itself seemed to be centered around another player building a harem inspired by Stinkle's very not safe for work Monster Girl encyclopedia. Every woman NPC seemed to be just a sex doll with ridiculously exaggerated proportions, triple P cups, breasts, and the like. Guys, I'm a visual learner. What does triple P cup look like? Actually, I'm not even looking it up. I'm not even like, don't tell me. Just don't tell me. I don't think I'm ready for it. I don't think my little tiefling brain is ready to handle that. Well, we know what kind of game Stinkle is going for. I called it. It's gonna be a harem fantasy game. Harem anime fantasy game with monster girls, because of course it is. I've made some himbo and bimbo NPCs that can be fun for storytelling, or even a quest giver's Lord Chaddington can't find his gold-plated barbell, or something silly like that. However, every woman NPC was nothing but an airhead for the players to add to their collection. I would have stopped at one session, but he ended on a combat cliffhanger. I stupidly thought, cool, I could do something fun next session. I was wrong. Next session started with one of the NPCs showing up and ending combat without any player participating, and returned to the real goal of sexing up monster girls. I walked away. And weirdly enough, there's still more to the story. There's like several paragraphs left. So apparently we got more to describe about this. Honestly, you were so debated by the thought of combat, and you should have left. You really should have left. Thankfully, you did early. You didn't stick around for like, 12 session like episode or something. Either way, there's still more we can learn about Stinkle, so let's get to it. Everybody get your radioactive suits on. We're about to go into some cringe. Stinkle is a player. I decided to run game after having taken a break from DMing. Stinkle wanted to play. I didn't want him in, but the rest of the group talked me into letting him play. We'll get to why later. So I asked for backstories, but they weren't mandatory, just got a little bonus XP to start if he did provide one. Stinkle was one of only 2 players that did. He went with a noble background and used the retainer rule variant. This is his character without any exaggeration. A noble woman with peacock breasts, because of course that's what listed first after woman, and the rest of his backstory was him describing his retainers in obscene detail and how they have sex with me. No personality, no motivation, no nothing other than breasts and sex. So I don't run ERP games. Again, if that's what you're into, fine. I'm uncomfortable with that at my table. So my goal was to keep him away from his retainers and the party on the plot. Every single time he had a chance to speak, it was either, "My boobs look great in bounds," or "Where are my retainers?" Finally, after the 4th or 5th time he brought up sex and his retainers, I said, "Yes, Stinkle, you Harvey Weinsteining your employees, hoping to shame him into lightening up." His response? Heh, yeah. I wish I was kidding. The man was okay with fictional characters being beholden to having sex with them. I was already sick of him, but then came to the straw that broke my back. You have a lot of endurance, or you got talked into allowing an absolute cretin into your game. I don't know why you tolerate him, but let's see the straw that broke the camel's back. The heir of the kingdom was a half-elf child, a girl. I love the boy or girl who would be king queen trope, and the party was supposed to rescue her from the streets and elevate her to the throne. When a combat encounter came, the party was supposed to run and fight a monster snake before it got to her. Stinkle says, "I stay with the child." Weird, but not insane. Then while the rest of the party was fighting the snake, his character comforts the child by resting her head between my boobs. And my character is sad now. That's grooming behavior. I shut it down immediately and said, "She runs away from you and hides." After the snake fights, I ended the session and told everyone I was booting him. They refused to play if Stinkle did play, so that campaign died. Why were these people so insistent on backing up the sex pest? Because they figured out weaponized pity. Every single time someone tried to make him culpable for his actions, he'd do an entire poor me routine, always claiming people were bullying him, how he can't catch a break, and girls that like good guys like me. What? I almost changed that to nice guys like me for the stereotype. But I want to emphasize that none of this is changed or exaggerated. This is verbatim what this guy was like. So people come back to bat for him. Something that will further boggle your mind in a moment. Boo-hoo, poor me. But sometimes you gotta realize that maybe the boo-hoo, poor me means you kind of done something and you're responsible for the situation you're in. If I'm an a-hole to people and I say, "Oh, boo-hoo, poor me," why do people want to be around Stinky Morrow all the time? Probably because Stinky Morrow is being a stinker and being an a-hole to people. Morrow, maybe you should stop being such an a-hole. Morrow, reflecting back on yourself and be able to look at yourself objectively and self-critically is a very important tool that some people just do not have, or they do have it, but they'll find ways to manipulate and weaponize emotions such as, "Oh no, boo-hoo, poor me. Why don't anybody like me? Women don't like me. Women don't want to be around me. People don't want to be around me all the time. They say I stink all the time." Probably because you stink. Maybe take a shower. Maybe consider about not being a creep lord. Maybe consider about talking about female characters that are not just basically just sex objects all the time. Maybe consider about playing a game where you can just be a regular ass adventurer, not just a big boobed hentai girl or something. The obsession. This man has an obsession with Gooner related stuff and lack of shower. And if you could fix that, maybe you could even have a chance and be kind of, sort of tolerable in any capacity. If this guy even had a personality to begin with. It's not a personality to be like, "I like anime big boobs." That's not a personality. That's an addiction. This man has an addiction. The thing that cements him as the worst person I've ever met. I was talking to someone that was adjacent to the friend group and he tells me he won't hang out with him anymore. He says it's because of Stinkle. Then tells me that Stinkle is Oh, I don't think he meant literally. I thought since Stinkle was annoying sex pest that he would just compare him to the worst kind of sex pest. No, he showed me on his phone that Stinkle was on his sex offender registry for SA. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for it. I did some Googling and found a news article from his case. He had some SA mentally and physically challenged woman. That was it. I was done. The worst part was the entire group already knew. They didn't care. I couldn't believe it. I had not talked to a single one of them in years. Sorry for long post, but everything needed to be said. It is insane. What? What? He's on sex offender registry because he assaulted a mentally and physically challenged woman, and everybody else in the party was like, no, DM, come on, let this poor guy play. He's just a good guy in a bad world and stuff. What? Oh my god. What the hell? Yeah, stay away from Stinkle, and also stay with people that want to defend Stinkle. Some people make mistakes, sure, understandable, but this guy clearly hasn't learned from his mistakes. He's still a sex-obsessed addict. He's so sex-obsessed. He's not doing anything physically, but he's taking this addiction, this craving, this obsession of his with sex onto D&D because, well, probably doesn't want to get arrested again, which isn't a healthy outlet in the slightest at all. Maybe therapy, I don't know, insane about therapy, insane amount of showering, and therapy will probably be doing better at this point. Everything up to this point with Stinkle was already reaching my personal limits, but this right there is the cake, especially the fact that everybody else in the party, they defended the guy and they didn't care the fact that he was on the sex registry for doing what he did. What? Insane. No, thank you. Listen, some people may be more tolerant than others, and some people may be able to tolerate a lot more than I can, but this would be too much for me as well. Honestly, I do not blame you, OP, for whatsoever to want to just not interact with anybody else from that group whatsoever and just completely, like, disassociate from them. I do not blame you in the slightest. Honestly, if they want to hang out with Stinkle, let him hang out with Stinkle. You choose for yourself not to hang out with Stinkle or be anywhere associated with anybody that wants to be Stinkle's buddy, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I fully support it. In fact, I think not should be associating with Stinkle or anybody that likes Stinkle, want to hang out with Stinkle. If you want to be in Stinkle's corner, go ahead, but you better make sure you bring Axe body spray because that space is going to be smelling up like hell.
And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.